Hey guys, what's going on? Congested Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit of technical analysis on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets, and more specifically, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin here, because as you can see, over the last 7 days or so, Bitcoin has generally been trending downward here, and currently it's sitting below an uptrend of support right here. Now, this isn't just any ordinary, really unimportant uptrend of support. This is actually a rather important uptrend of support. If we zoom out here, you can see it's a rather long-term uptrend of support. And in fact, if you've watched any video I've uploaded in the last 2 months or so, you'll probably have heard the mantra that this is an important uptrend of support because this uptrend of support constitutes the trend that Bitcoin has been making of setting consecutive higher lows over the last several months, which is a very important component for the formation of a new Bitcoin bull market. In other words, it's an important uptrend, and we don't want to see Bitcoin break it. But as you can see, Bitcoin doesn't seem to be following our wishes and is currently sitting below it. Depending on how you draw this downtrend, Bitcoin has either already broken this uptrend of support or is currently trying to get support on it. But either way, we're going to be discussing the ramifications and the implications of a break of this uptrend of support in today's video, because that's not exactly something we want to see. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. But actually, I lied, because there's one thing I want to talk about, and that is why there wasn't a video for the last 2 days. You probably heard in the last video I uploaded, and probably you can hear in my voice that I am rather sick, and it's kind of hard for me to record right now. I am feeling much better, so hopefully there won't be any more missed videos for the rest of the year, hopefully. Anyway, now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and get on with the video. Bitcoin is currently trading at around $6,200, and if we come in here to the hourly chart, what we're going to see is that Bitcoin very recently, just a couple of hours ago, really started breaking this uptrend of support. We had a couple of big red candlesticks earlier on in the morning here in Eastern Standard Time on the East Coast of America, and we've seen a little bit of a bounce here. Like I said, we're going to talk about later about how that might be a bounce off of the uptrend, in fact, and I may just have the trend line drawn a little bit wrong, but it really comes down to interpretation, and there are a lot of people in the market that I'm sure have the trend line drawn where Bitcoin is already broken below it, because this is kind of an ambiguous trend, and it's not glaringly obvious how you should actually have this drawn. So we're going to talk about that in a little while. One thing I do like to see is that Bitcoin's hovering around $6,200. Even if this trend line of support doesn't hold, we at least have a big even of 6,200 to help give us a little bit of a floor here. I may have to clear my throat a couple times, guys. I do apologize. My alter ego, Congested Jeb, doesn't really like sounding like a radio talk show host when we're trying to record a video. Anyway, let's go ahead and get on to the crypto market recap here on CoinMarketCap. If we give the page a little refresh here, what we're going to see is that across all exchanges, Bitcoin is currently trading around $6,300 instead of $6,200, like we can see here on Coinbase. That would be because Tether is still messing with the market, sitting down here trading around 98.9 cents or so. Definitely not exactly something you want to see. One thing that I do like is the little green that we're seeing Tether hold. Pretty much the entire market, excuse me guys, is red. Tether, on the other hand, is up by 0.17%. If you go back and you click the video on the top right, actually I won't be able to add that card, but if you look on the channel, I did an April Fool's video where I did some technical analysis on Tether, and I recommended you guys to invest in Tether because it was the greatest cryptocurrency in the history of the world. And it turns out, ever since that video back in April, if you had have invested in Tether, you might have done better if you invested in Tether than in literally any other cryptocurrency in the market right now, because the market hasn't been doing very well since April. I just find that kind of funny. If you want to watch that video, I was very happy with that video when I recorded it. Anyway, if we scroll down here, we do see Chainlink is up about 7%. TrueUSD is up a little bit. You would expect that being a stable coin. A lot of times the stable coins will move in the opposite direction of altcoins and Bitcoin, because when you're selling out of an altcoin or a Bitcoin or a Bitcoin, when you're selling out of altcoins or Bitcoin, you're selling into some kind of stable coin. Normally, you're not always selling into actual fiat US dollars, and a lot of times that does cause the stable coins to pump a little bit, which is probably why we're seeing Tether and TrueUSD up a little bit today. Paxos Standard is up by about 0.5%, and really, if we sort by change over the last 24 hours, you're going to see that ain't a whole lot of green. We see Ethereum and Siren Labs token up by over 10%, but for the most part, the market is red. We see 3 double-digit losers, and Bitcoin Cash is threatening to join them, sitting at negative 9.94%. It has lost a lot of that valuation that it built up over the last couple of days. Let's go ahead and look at the Bitcoin Cash chart. There's not a whole lot to discuss on Bitcoin, so we have time. As we can see, Bitcoin Cash had a very nice little rally here at the beginning of November. And right around here is when people started talking about on the channel about wanting to get into this market, and I just didn't, I really didn't think that was a good idea, because we're still in a bear market, guys. Well, actually, I take that back. We're in an accumulation phase, and we're on like the bear market half of the accumulation phase. We haven't really met that halfway point in the accumulation phase. So we're still rather bearish in the market. We do still see a lot of bearish price action in the market. We're definitely not in a bull market, and this kind of little rally right here is not really sustainable in the kind of market that we're in. So we have seen a little bit of a pullback. Be careful of these big, literally 50% moves. That is actually about a 50% move when you're still in this kind of market, guys, because it's not going to last. Bitcoin Cash definitely doesn't look like it's doing all that well. Anyway, let's see if there's anything else we want to discuss here on CoinMarketCap. As you can see, guys, I'm going a little bit more casual today because my brain ain't working the way it normally does because of this stupid head cold. Anyway, Ethereum's currently trading a little over $200, which I like to see, but it is down by about 3.4%. Perhaps Ethereum could hold on to that $200 and set that as an actual level of support. Ethereum hasn't really wanted to set $200 as a level of support recently. We've kind of been trading up and below it and just kind of just saying screw you to $200 and not giving it any actual significance. As you can see here, Ethereum hasn't really respected this level very much at all. Hopefully it does, because that is a very nice place that Ethereum could be setting a level of support in. Anyway, Bitcoin currently has a daily volume of around $4.5 billion, and I think that's everything that we wanted to cover here. I'm sorry, guys, with my head cold brain, I can't think of any puns for the altcoins. Redcoin is down 10% in the red. There you go. There's a pun. Anyway, let's go ahead and get on to the Bitcoin TA. Bitcoin is currently sitting below this uptrend of support, but the first thing I want to talk about is actually the Bitfinex chart, because if you guys remember, for the longest time, for probably 8 months or so, I did all my technical analysis on the Bitfinex chart, and there was a very good reason for that. It was because Bitfinex is one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges in the entire market, and also it was partially because they use Tether, actually, and one of the reasons I did that is because Tether is not exactly a cryptocurrency. I'm not going to call it a cryptocurrency, but it's in the cryptocurrency space. It's not like the US dollar. So when we had Bitcoin Cash over what this should be, which is actually US dollar Tether, because Bitfinex trades over USDT, then we had a bit of a feel for what Bitcoin was doing and for what Tether was doing. And also Bitfinex was a very large exchange. And also Bitfinex is where we have our shorts and our longs charts, which is why I use Bitfinex. I don't use it anymore because there's a big discrepancy in Tether's price action and the US dollar's price action, which is why I now use Coinbase. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I don't use Bitfinex anymore, but I do still look at it. And that's because Bitfinex correlates, the Bitfinex chart correlates very strongly with many other altcoin charts, because the vast majority of exchanges do not trade Bitcoin over US dollars. That's something that you would probably like to see, is that many of them trade over US dollars. But if you get an exchange trading over US dollars, then you are subject to a lot more regulation, which, by the way, is the main reason why Tether exists, to usurp many of those regulations. So Coinbase is one of the only major exchanges that actually does most of its trading over US dollars. You have Bitfinex, Coinbase, Bittrex. Many of these others have US dollar Tether pairings, but many of them don't have US dollar pairings, at least on the main markets that they use. And that's one of the reasons that I don't use Bitfinex anymore, because Tether's price action has been bastardized so much by this Tether FUD that happened about a month ago. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because I do want to look at the Bitfinex chart, because it is still significant, because it mirrors many other charts, and there are important things to look at on it. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because on the Bitfinex chart, Bitcoin has not broken this uptrend of support yet, because these charts are a bit different. As you can see, they look a little bit different, but they are still very, very similar in structure, especially as it relates to this uptrend of support right here. And Bitcoin has not broken it on the Bitfinex chart, and the reason I'm bringing this up, of course, I'm going to say again so you guys understand, many of the other exchanges, many of the other major exchanges, like Binance, for example, trade over US dollar Tether, which means their charts are going to look very similar to this. And Bitfinex, the Bitfinex's Bitcoin has not gone below this uptrend of support right now, which is an argument in favor of the fact that we have, or an argument in favor of the opinion, rather, that we haven't actually broken this uptrend of support yet. And there's something else I want to point out, and that is the fact that on Coinbase, on the Coinbase chart that we use, if you redraw this trend line just a little bit like that, you could say that we haven't actually broken it yet. You can redraw this trend line just a little bit on really long-term trends like this. You can redraw these trend lines a little bit. You have a little bit of wiggle room, which is why I was saying earlier that we haven't necessarily for a fact broken it yet, but nevertheless, it is under threat and it is in jeopardy, because as you can see, just about no matter how you draw this uptrend of support, we are still very, very close to it. And right now, we're either getting a bounce off of it, which hopefully we do, because I wouldn't like to see this uptrend broken, or we're going to see a breach of it pretty soon. So like I said, let's go ahead and discuss what I think is going to happen if we do breach this uptrend of support in the next 24 hours before I can upload another video on the matter, because you guys know if there's nothing else happening on the market, I will talk about this for the next week and somehow still come up with new ideas for videos. I have no idea how I do that either. Anyway, let's go ahead and zoom out to the 4-hour and talk about where I think Bitcoin would go if we break this uptrend of support. I'm going to redraw just a little bit right like that, and I want to lay out the next major level of support that it has, which is why I had the rectangle selected earlier on in the video. If I were to look for another major level of support for Bitcoin, I would draw a little box right there as a zone of support. There's no clear real level of support right here. You could say it's $6,200, and I would give you that. I'd say that $6,200 is a pretty obvious one, but we're very close to it anyway, and as you can see, we're basically there already. If we don't bounce off of $6,200, which is right around where the trend line is giving us support, let's talk about where we're going to go from there. I think the next major level of support is obviously, well, one of them is obviously $6,100. That's another big even because it has 2 zeros in it. Anything with more than 2 zeros in it, especially when Bitcoin is trading at a valuation with only 4 decimal places in it, at $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $3,000, for example. Anything with more than 2 zeros in it, 2 zeros over here closer to the decimal, is going to be what I call a big even. And those are important levels because it's a major psychological level that a lot of people like to trade around. Where would you, for example, put a trade in? Would you put a trade in at $6,672.17 or $6,800? Where would you put a trade in? Most people would put it in closer to a big even number just because we all have a little bit of OCD. And that's a major important factor. Excuse me, guys. When we're doing our technical analysis, I have to cough or I sound like I'm doing a radio show. Anyway, down here around $6,100 is where I would expect Bitcoin to go if we do break this uptrend of support. I think it would go at least to here, and we could see Bitcoin pull back all the way to $6,000, guys. As you can see, the downtrend here over the last couple of days, really the last week, has been rather strong. I didn't expect it to be quite this strong, and I do still think that there's a decent chance that we that we hold support on this uptrend, and that we do get a bounce here. But if we don't, I expect Bitcoin will pull back to around $6,100 or down to $6,000. I still don't see it. I still don't see there's a snowball's chance in hell that we ever go below $6,000 again, at least permanently. We may go down to like $5,750 where the Hoffman line is and where previous support is, but I don't think we're ever going to permanently break $6,000 and just destroy that level of support. I don't think that's going to happen. Of course, I'll be the first to eat my words if it does happen, but I don't see that happening. Anyway, I think what's most likely here is that Bitcoin gets a bounce here. But I don't say that with a large margin. I think it's probably like a 55% chance Bitcoin gets a bounce here, because with the strength of this downtrend right here, there's definitely a case for the bears to go below this uptrend of support. And one thing I also want to talk about is that the last video that went up on the channel, I talked about the 3-day death cross. Now, while I don't put hardly any weight on what happens on the 3 daily chart, and while I don't put hardly any weight on death crosses either, one thing I do put weight on is public opinion. And so many YouTubers and so many people have talked about this 3 daily death cross and spreaded FUD around it, that may implement more FUD into the market, which means that could drive us below this uptrend of support and cause some bearish price action in Bitcoin. Of course, I wouldn't want to see that, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is the actual public opinion and the mass psychology in the market, because one thing that you've seen lately is a lot of people are talking about that, and you really don't want to see that happen. Anyway, I just lost my train of thought, guys. I'm still sick. Anyway, I do want to see Bitcoin hold this, and I do think that there's a slightly better chance that we do see Bitcoin bounce here. Anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about here. Where do you guys think Bitcoin's going to go if we break this uptrend of support? I don't see Bitcoin going below $6,100 with a lot of certainty. I think Bitcoin would at least try and hold support down here at the bottom of this support zone. It's got to trudge through a lot of support right here, especially all the way down to $6,100. But if we break through that, we'll probably go straight to $6,000. Tell me in the comment section down below what you think of that technical analysis, and tell me in the comment section down below where you think Bitcoin will go in the next 48 hours or so. There's one more thing I want to talk about, and that relates to the actual shorts charts and the longs chart. As we can see, Bitcoin shorts have been dropping very, very quickly here. We've seen one green day on shorts since the beginning of the month. Shorts have been dropping extremely fast, and typically when you see a trend in the shorts or the longs charts go for this long, normally you're going to see some kind of reversal, which means in the next week or so, probably before then actually, we're going to see some kind of bounce in the shorts, and they're going to start going up again, which would not exactly be what we want to see when Bitcoin is sitting down here just above a level of support that we desperately want to hold. I do not want to see that happen, but that's probably what's going to happen. Shorts are probably going to start bouncing up here. We're seeing them very close to a yearly low, excuse me, not a yearly low, a low since early April and actually early March. We saw them pull all the way down to around 17,500 back over here in early August. I don't necessarily think they're going to go that low based on how they're kind of slowing down their descent right here. So I think we're probably going to see some kind of bounce coming here over the next couple of days. That really would not be good for Bitcoin, because this is not exactly the place we want that to happen. But something interesting shows up on the longs charts as well, because if you come over here and you click on the longs chart, longs have also been going down, and normally there's an inverse correlation between longs and shorts. Normally when shorts are going up, longs are going down, and vice versa, but when they're both moving in the same direction, you can kind of use that as a gauge for volume, retail interest, and volatility in the market, because when you see longs going down and shorts going down, well, that money has to be going somewhere, and clearly it's either leaving the cryptocurrency market or moving into markets that don't have anything to do with Bitcoin. So you can take that in two ways. You can say that more valuation is flowing into the altcoins, which means we're losing Bitcoin dominance, or you can say that more valuation in general is leaving the market if we assume that most of these longs aren't just $1 longs that some whale put in. So the fact of the matter with that is, when we see shorts and longs going down, a lot of times that means that the market is shrinking. At least the Bitcoin market is shrinking, and a lot of that valuation is either flowing into the altcoins or flowing out of the market. And clearly, it doesn't seem like the altcoins are getting a whole lot of valuation here, so it seems to me that a lot of that valuation is straight up flowing out of the market, which is what we expect coming into the end of the bear market and into the accumulation phase. We do still expect that there's still going to be some volume and some volatility, some valuation, all of that leaving the market. That doesn't surprise me, but I did want to go ahead and give you guys a heads up on that because that is a trend that you do want to keep an eye on. Anyway, guys, I do hope you enjoyed this video. Apologies for it being a little bit more incoherent and a tad bit more rambly than it normally is. I do still have a bit of a head cold. The main reason I didn't record yesterday wasn't actually because of my throat mainly. It was because my head was so stuffed that I couldn't think straight, and that isn't exactly conducive to speaking at 400, 500 words a minute, whatever I talk at. Anyway, guys, one thing I do want to mention before we wrap up the video is I posted two comments, or I posted two community posts talking about why there wouldn't be videos. And as you can see, I got a lot of good responses from this, a lot of very nice responses. I'm just going to scroll down here and give credit to all these awesome people who wish me good health. I want to thank every single one of you guys. That was so very nice for you guys to take time out of your day to wish me to feel better. That was so nice of you guys. I did heart all these comments, and I did try to respond to many of them. I wasn't able to get to all of them because there were like 60 of them. I do want to thank all of you guys, and thank you guys for wishing me well. But that is going to do it for this video, guys. I do want to thank each and every one of you for watching also, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.